Action.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. Yeah, I could use this for like a resume or something. Good. Hey, I met most of you. My name is Shane. I work at Camp Gray, which many of you have been to. If you haven't, come on over. But no, it's an awesome experience to be with you all today. I hope to share some inspiration with you, but I am confident that you guys have more inspiration for me, and that's why I'm here today, because I'm continually inspired by you guys. And after last month, I was have been thinking a lot. For those of you who weren't here last month, we talked a lot about surrender and the idea of surrendering, how important that is to really give up your desires for the Lord, because the Lord ultimately has greater desires for you. And that's what we focused on last time, and I was really thinking about that this whole past month. I had the opportunity to do some traveling, so I had a lot of thinking time, and the thought kept coming into my head of the idea that no man is an island. Have you guys ever heard that phrase before, that no man is an island? It's used in song lyrics. There's a book, No Man is an Island. There's also a movie, No Man is an Island. I haven't listened to the song, read the book, or watched that movie, so I'm not endorsing any of those. But it's kind of a popular phrase, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory that we're not here as individuals. We're individually unique and beautiful, but the Lord didn't set us on the earth by ourselves. So I'm actually going to start. That's on wheels. It's not going to work. I'm going to start with a story about my own life, and then hopefully I'll be able to relate it back to that original phrase. So I'm going to go back to the early days of Shane. None of you knew me then. And by early days, I mean 3 years ago in college. But no, so I grew up in Bismarck, very, very Catholic, and this is going to be a shortened version for those of you who heard this. I grew up very Catholic. I grew up in North Dakota. Moved to college. In my first year of college, I was all gung-ho, all Catholic, excited to be there. I came from a really cool Catholic high school. And then once I got to college, I was I had all these friends. I got way too super involved. Loved where I was, loved what I was doing. I was surrounded by 15 groups of people, different groups of people. But I thought, oh, absolutely, I can do all of this. I can be in all these groups of friends. And I'm also Catholic. And everyone kept warning me, you're going to stop going to Mass. Choose to be Catholic now, so you're Catholic in college. I had that whole spiel. I had all of that. And I thought, oh, that's not even a concern for me. I've never doubted that. It's going to be fine. Got to college. Freshman year went pretty well. But then towards the end of the freshman year, I was wow, I am feeling pretty burnt out. Not from academics, I was doing fine in college. But I was getting really burnt out in terms of I am burnt out socially, which is the first time I've ever felt that. I've always considered myself a pretty social person, extroverted, but all of a sudden I felt I cannot keep up. I am involved with way too many different people, and I started to change for every different group of people. Have any of you experienced that before? I think we kind of identified that last time of how we're school self and then Catholic self, and we don't ever combine those circles. I was experiencing that at a pretty high level in college because I was involved with student government, involved with all these different campus activities, but then also I'm in the church choir. So, which really shouldn't be separate entities in someone's life. You can very well be involved in many things. But I was sectioning out. My life was in sections. So I was okay, I'm Catholic here, but then with this group of friends, I'm not. I don't bring my faith into this one because I know that wouldn't be cool. So all of a sudden, I was really starting to separate who I was internally, which definitely started surfacing externally. And that lasted for about a year and a half. So this was towards the end of my sophomore year when I was I'm done. I don't even know who I am right now. I'm so many different people for other people. And I started realizing I was pushing everyone away. When in my mind, I'm look how many people I'm surrounding myself. But really, I was pushing everyone away because of my own pride. It took a lot of introspection, a lot of thought to realize what was pushing me away. What really was the cause? Was it because I wanted to have friends? Was it because I wanted to be popular or wanted to be involved? Came down, the root of it, as with most things, was my own pride. I wanted to be prideful in every circumstance that I was in. So I wanted to be the coolest and the best with every situation, whether that was in the church or not in the church. But I was moving away from myself, as weird as that sounds. And I realized that I'd pushed everyone away because of my own pride. And I stopped to look when it got really bad. I thought, what am I doing? And I realized I kind of had this island mentality. I had pushed myself onto my own island. If that makes sense, kind of that imagery. I had a lot of caring, supportive people, but they were far away from me at this point from my own doing. And I was on my own island, which was a scary place to be. And I think we've all kind of felt that. We identified that last time you guys met, of just like, yeah, it's really easy to be like surrounded in this like fun atmosphere when we're like at Camp Gray or on Love Begins Here or Frassati Fest or with one another at these monthly meetings. That's fun and easy, but then all of a sudden it's like you go to school and you're like, wow, now I'm on my own island. Has anybody felt that before as I talk about that? Yeah, right? And so that's a scary place to be. We all know that. And I was in that place for way too long and I wasn't doing anything to fix it. So I prayed pretty immensely at a point of like, I still believed in God. I still claimed to be Catholic, but I definitely knew that I felt alone, right? And alone is different than like choosing solidarity. So I started praying to like help me make this next move. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should invite people onto my island. I don't know if I should start swimming. I didn't know what to do. When I kind of felt this urge, I like, okay, Shane, you got to get back on the boat. Okay, you got to get back on the boat. That can mean a few different things, but this is what it meant for me. I knew that I needed to make a move and I needed to get off of my own island, right? Which meant like humbling, like I needed a lesson in humility. So I got back on the boat, okay? Once I jumped on board with what I thought the Lord wanted me for, I realized He had filled that boat with people. Okay, are you guys following the analogy? So I'm going to start off with the question. I want you to think about it for the rest of the talk of what is your island? Because last time the majority of us identified that at times we feel isolated, right? Which is not a feeling from the Lord. The Lord doesn't want you to feel isolated. So start thinking, if you want to jot that down so it's in your mind, what is your island? What's pushing the island? For me, it was pride, right? So fast forward, I jumped on that boat. It was full of wonderful people, and I took it for granted. I did, but I like rode that all through Estill College, which brought me to Camp Gray, which brought me here. So it's pretty clear that I got off the island. For the most part, there's still moments when I like want to run back there. Swear me, can't really run to an island. But on this boat, I have started to realize, this has taken like 2 or 3 years to kind of like realize like, wow, I was abundantly blessed with the people that were with me. But I never really thought about like, why? Like the Lord didn't have to fill that boat with people, right? I mean, I knew Jesus was on that boat, and I knew the Lord was there guiding that boat, but it was full of people. And if you stop to think of like, okay, if I got on a boat right now, who would I want on that boat, right? You can start to think about that too. So I left the island, got on this boat full of people, and I thought, wow. 2 years later, I'm like really thinking now of like, gosh, that was really incredible, all the people He surrounded me with, right? Then I started asking myself, why? Like, why did the Lord provide me with that? This is something I talked about last time we were together. The Lord desires for us to be in community with one another, and that's exactly why He filled that boat with people, and I know that confidently. I'm going to give you a quick lesson in salvation history. This is not on wheels. Here we go. Salvation history in less than a minute, okay? Here we go. So up here we have God, right? And then He created with the creation story, right, in Genesis. Then here we have us, right? What do you think this is? What's coming down? I'll give you a hint. It's love. It's more than a hint. That's the answer. God created us and loved us so much, right? In order for us to do what? Cool, active group. What are we supposed to do back? Love Him back, right? Wow, this is all fine and dandy, right? The plan of salvation, right? God created us. He loves us so much in order that we can love Him back, right? Is this how it's happening? Like perfectly circled, there's never an interruption? No! What happened right here? Sin, right? Original sin, right? So now all of a sudden, I've always wanted to do that. Now all of a sudden, we have us, and then all of a sudden we have like this little gap right there, right? So what did He do to fix that little gap? Jesus, right? Thank you, Sarah. Right? He sent Jesus, right? He sent Jesus to help us like cross that bridge to like return that love to the Father, right? And what did He have to do? Everyone knows this. He had to die for us, right? He had to die for us in order that we might fully love God back, right? Because that circle was broken due to original sin. Everyone following me? Right. So what did Jesus leave us? After Jesus died, what did He leave us? Forgiveness. I'm thinking big. The church, right? He left us the Catholic Church, right? He started the church upon this rock. Peter, you're my rock. Upon this rock, I'll build my church. Everyone familiar with that? He left us the church, right? What is the church? Us, right? There's a community, right? Are you a church by yourself? Right? It's a structure. The church is a structure, right? But what ultimately is the structure of the church? People, right? He left us a community of people. So in order this plan of salvation was interrupted, He sent Jesus. Jesus left us the church. He left us with a community, right? So that's why my boat was full of people. Okay, so that like started this like cool little analogy. Now it's like, whoa, this is actually a thing, right? Okay, one more time. Sorry, Bishop Constantine, I'm using all your paper. Right? I'm going to continue with this analogy. I don't like when people take analogies too far and beat them over the head, but I'm going to do it right now, okay? A lot of people have been in a lot of churches, right? Hopefully. And a lot of churches are like kind of structured. Sometimes we see churches like this, right? With like the altar up here, everyone's back here, right? Everyone's seen a church like that? The Bishop O'Connor Center is kind of like that. A lot of churches are like this. They've got kind of boom, then they got one of these, and one of these. Wow, that is beautiful, right? And like the altar's up here, all the pews, all the pews, all the pews. What's over here sometimes? Confessionals, right? Sometimes there's confessionals over here. Sometimes there's side altars, right? There's all kinds of things going on. Kind of a gingerbread man, right? Okay, now, I love the study of words, okay? So does anyone know what this part is called? This is where the people sit. What is this called in the church? I believe it's a Latin word. Anybody know what this is called? Great, I'm going to give you another hint again. It's called the nave. Right? I know, everyone's going to say. Right, the nave. What that means is the body of the church. Right? So it means like where we sit, the people, the nave. Okay? Where else have we seen a word similar to this? Naval, navy, right? This is also the bulk of the ship. That's the word used for like the center of the ship where people are on the ship. Right? Okay? So the church is technically, we could call it a what? A ship, right? Right? I know. See? Boom, right? So Jesus, remember back at this time, I'm not going to pull it out again. Remember? God loved us. It was interrupted. Sent Jesus, who gave us the church. He gave us that ship to cross that connection that broke, right? I know, right? I know. Okay, so that's all my lesson on that. Here we go. So I started thinking about that. This was just recently, too, which was cool. But I started thinking about that. I'm like, wow, the Lord literally like gave me a ship on a smaller scale, when really he gave all of us this huge ship to come back on together in order to get to our Lord, right? And that ship is not, you're not sitting on that ship alone, right? He didn't say, great, I prepared each one of you your own little ships to ride. No, he like wants us all together, united, right? Last year's Frassati, united. He wants us all to be united. And he gave us a captain, right? He sent his captain. Great. Is everyone following me so far? Great. So, as with many things, I like to really think about this. So this was like on my mind, and especially this past month, I was like really thinking about how much the Lord has blessed me and how blessed all of us, for us all to be together like this, is clearly desired. The Lord desires that for us, to be together. So I started looking like scripturally, because as humans, we tend to like be a little stubborn, forget things. So throughout all of history, after this all happened, the Lord has continually reminded us and shown us like clear examples of why he wants that. And I want to share with those, some of you. Do you have those little, can I see what's in here? There we go. Perfect. This first phrase, right in Genesis, right? So this is the first book of the Bible. So he created man and then already gave us his first reminder within 2 chapters of the Bible that he doesn't want us to be alone, right? So right there in Genesis, can someone read that for me?
Then the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him."
Right, exactly. What are some words that stand out in that section right there? Anyone? Alone, right? It's not good for man to be alone, right? So it's pretty clear there. There's no confusion. The biggest word that sticks out to me is helper, right? I make him a suitable helper. Who did he make? He was talking to Adam, right? He made Eve, right? A suitable helper. Okay, again, so I started looking at what the word helper means, okay? So the Bible, for those of you who didn't know, it has been translated. It wasn't written in English. So I started looking at like where that word helper comes from. It comes from the word, let's see here, azer. Okay, that's a Hebrew word. And that word was used very, very intentionally. What that word means in Hebrew is to rescue and to save. Okay? So it's not like, hey, I'll help you tend the garden. That's not what they were talking about. Like, I need to make someone to help save man. Like it's not good for man to be alone. You need someone to help save you. That's what that original passage read. Okay? So if you were reading it in Hebrew, that's a big deal, right? Like, no, you can't be alone. You're going to need people to save you and to rescue you. So all of a sudden, like, the Lord is very clear. Like, I'm making another person for that reason, not just like to have a friend or like have fun with. Like, you need people. It continues on, in case you don't believe me yet, with that passage from Galatians. Can someone read that?
Bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ.
Right. So now it's saying, like, you want to fulfill the law of Christ? Help one another. That's a pretty, like, strict command, right? Like, you want to fulfill my law that I set for you? Help one another and bear each other. Like, take the load off and do it together, right? He doesn't want us to do this alone. And the last one from Ecclesiastes.
2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up. And if no one can overpower him who is alone, 2 can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart.
That sounds like a nice Hallmark card, doesn't it? Right? But pretty serious, right? So it's like pretty clear throughout the Bible, if we didn't believe all of that, what I just talked about, or if it's like tough for us to grasp, the Lord is consistently reminding us that he does not want us to be alone, right? He's even saying, like, you're going to need people to survive. They're going to rescue you, right? He sent us Christ. We need people to hold each other accountable. It's pretty clear. So now all of a sudden it's like, not only desirous, it's pretty much required. So for me, or for any one of us to separate ourselves on an island is actually detrimental. To think I can do this alone, or I don't need people, or I'm going to push people away. Sometimes we don't deliberately choose that, but it's by our actions or by these like continual things that we do. I didn't just one day wake up and be like, I don't want any other people. I'm just going to go hang on an island by myself. It was like a gradual thing, right? My pride slowly kind of crept in. And that happens. I think we can all relate to that, right? Like we have these like wonderful experiences at Frassati Fest, and we're like, yeah, I'm on this ship. I'm surrounded by people. I have this wonderful community. This is exactly what the Lord desires for me. That feeling is good. That's from the Lord. He's showing you like, yes, this is exactly what. And then about a month later, we're back in school. We're back in our sports. And we don't necessarily feel that, right? That gradually, we kind of gradually go back to that island, right? Because it's tough when you're doing that, right? So it's perfectly normal to like feel that like, oh my gosh, like this is really challenging, right? Because in the Bible too, this is like a pretty clear example as well. Jesus has all the apostles on a boat. He makes it too easy for us, right? He has them all on a boat, right? And it's really, really stormy, right? And what does he do? He calls Peter off the boat, right? Peter said, like, okay, if that's you, I'm going to walk to you. And he's like, okay, come, follow me, right? So he called him off the boat. So sometimes the Lord calls us off the boat, right? We can't do absolutely everything together. Sometimes the Lord calls us on our own mission, right? Sometimes we have to get off that boat, walk on stormy waters to get to where the Lord wants us. But we can never forget that right behind us, right with us, there's a boat full of people, right? As soon as he started to doubt, what happened? He started to sink, right? So he saw what the Lord wanted. He was called off that boat. Sometimes we're called off on our own mission, right? Sometimes we do have to go to school when there's nobody else who supports us at that school, and we have to do it by ourselves, right? We have wonderful things like this monthly to come back to, right? We're coming back to that boat in order that we can like have that trust and confidence to go back out on the mission that the Lord's calling us, right? So he doesn't want us to just stay on that boat, just like in our comfort zone with our people, right? He called us off the boat, but he always provides that back for us. He always provides because he desires for us to have that, right? He would never call us out to be alone for eternity, right? He always provides that. So these are like clear examples. The last thing I want to talk about that is like really resonating with me currently, so I don't like have any like great knowledge bombs or any like answers to this, but I want to talk about the upper room. So right after Jesus died, all his apostles were a little freaked out for good reason, right? And you can kind of relate this to your own life. So Christ died, all the apostles were freaked out. Because what do you think they were thinking? We're next, right? Like, oh my gosh, like our fearless leader was just crucified. Like, here we are, like our captain. Like, could you imagine if like our captain was like steering this boat, all of a sudden he's gone. Like, do we know how to steer this boat? Like, they were probably like freaking out as if like, okay, wow, we just had like this wonderful experience at Frassati Fest. I was surrounded by those people, and now I'm like on my own. Like, I'm a little freaked out right now, right? And so they were up in the upper room, and it says they were returned to Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey away. When they had entered the city, they went up to the upper room where they were staying. That is, Peter, John, James, Andrew, Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, Matthew, James, Simon, Judas. They were all with one mind, were continually devoting themselves to prayer, along with the women, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. Right? So there's a lot in that little passage, right? So Christ died, and what's the first thing they did? They came together, right? They came together, and what happened? They were all with one mind, right? They all knew that, like, okay, we need to devote ourselves to prayer. Which is so cool because that's exactly what we're doing right now. Okay, so it might be like a sacrifice to commit to things like this. It might be a sacrifice to give up a week of your summer. It might be a sacrifice to start a group at your school. But that's exactly what the Lord wants for us, right? He provided us all of these things. He provided us the ship. He provided us with a mission. Sometimes he calls us off the ship, but he always will provide for us a place to come home, right? That's our home. The Catholic Church, right upstairs, is our home. This is our home with one another. But it's so important that we're all with one mind, right? In prayer. Yeah? Everyone following? So that's your challenge. I want you to think, what's your island? Because we all have those islands, right? We're not perfect people. That little happened for all of us. And the Lord is calling us all. So we got to get on the boat. He's not going to force us on the boat, right? We forced ourselves onto our own islands, and it's our decision to get back on the boat, to follow him. But you got to figure out what's your island. Cool? Just want to make sure I cover everything. I think I did. There we go. We're going to take a few minutes now. We're going to head to the chapel to have some reflection time. Once we get up there, I just ask that we all spread ourselves out in the church. And then it's going to be very, very meditative. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be silent, which I think is important. Remember, quiet in alone time is not a bad thing. Okay, so that's why I distinguished at the beginning. Solitude and loneliness are different things, right? So we can be on a boat and still have solitude. Solitude is an okay thing. It's okay to quiet yourselves from the distraction of ourselves or other people. Still in a community, right? We don't have to get on an island to find that solitude. So that's what we're going to experience today for a little bit. We're going to kind of be on our own in the body of the church, in the nave, right? So you guys learned a few languages today. And I'm just going to have 3 reflection questions. I'm going to ask one, have about 4 to 5 minutes to think about it, ask another one. Once we get there, I'm going to pass out note cards, and you can grab a pen on your way out. Write down those answers, because you'll be reflecting on them for a little while later today. Cool. All right, we'll head up to the chapel now. Thanks, everyone.